Hi, I'm Eric from Stinger Electronics. Today I'm going to walk you through the installation of the Stinger HEIGH10 10-inch infotainment system in this 2011 GMC Sierra. Whether you're a casual driver just looking to add Android Auto or CarPlay, or you're an audiophile looking for the best quality sound system for your truck, the Stinger HEIGH10 10-inch infotainment system is packed with tons of features and a sleek modern design. After we install our Stinger infotainment system, it's going to completely transform the driving experience in this truck. It's going to have Android Auto, CarPlay, it'll have video from the backup camera, it's going to have enough power to drive all the speakers in the truck, and it's going to have all the RCA outputs we would need if we want to add aftermarket amplifiers. Before we get started, let's review what we need. The Sierra radio replacement kit includes HEIGH10 infotainment system, Sierra dash kit, wiring harnesses, and dual USB port. We recommend having these tools handy to complete the install. Plastic pry tools, Phillips screwdriver, a ratchet with extension and sockets, crimpers, pliers, flush cuts, flathead screwdriver, a pick tool, a Torx wrench, crimp caps, and zip ties. This truck's actually pretty easy to take apart. We're going to start by removing this dash bezel right here. You can use your plastic pry tool. Carefully put it at the top of the dash and pry forward. That's going to pop out. This panel does latch in behind these lower panels, so this bottom piece needs to come out and over. So, pull down to release all the clips. Once it's unclipped, I pull the shifter out of the way to give yourself a little bit of extra clearance. That just slides out of the dash. Now there's going to be some connectors that are connected to the vehicle here from the traction control and the power outlets. So unclip those so that you can remove this panel from the vehicle. With those unplugged, we can set this aside for now. Now we're going to remove the 4 bolts that hold in the radio and the 2 bolts that hold in the climate control panel. With the 4 bolts removed from the factory radio, we can slide it out and disconnect the USB cable, the 2 connectors, and the antenna adapter. And that's all there is for the disassembly. Now we can head to the bench and put everything together so we can install our infotainment system into the truck. Your Stinger kit comes with a couple wiring harnesses. One is from the radio replacement interface that plugs into the vehicle. The other connects directly into the Stinger unit itself. Most of the wires on these harnesses match color for color. There's a few that don't. I'm going to start by matching the ones that match color for color, and then I'll explain the ones that don't. Our Stinger harness does have a wire here labeled P antenna. That's for your powered antenna. This truck does not have that, so we're going to go ahead and crimp that off. We're going to actually cut that off and throw a crimp cap on there just so it doesn't make any contact. Now for the 3 wires that don't match color for color, in this harness we have a speed wire. This is going to need to be connected to the pink wire from the radio replacement interface. Next is the green wire labeled reverse. This is going to connect to our purple wire with a white stripe. And finally, our pink wire labeled parking brake is going to connect to the light green wire. With all the wires connected, I'm going to use just a few zip ties to kind of clean up the wires a little bit. Now we're ready to plug all the harnesses into our radio replacement interface. But before we do that, as instructed on this sticker, we need to set this switch on the side to number 4. With that set to 4, now we can make the connections for our harnesses. If the truck's equipped with a factory amplified audio, you plug in here. If it's equipped with non-amplified audio, you plug in here. This truck does not have a factory amplifier, so we're going to plug into the non-amplified factory audio section. This is your steering wheel control harness. This is what's going to allow the factory steering wheel controls to control your Stinger unit. And then the main connector plugs in here. This is for your chime module. Now that we've got all the wiring and everything set here, I'm going to grab the multimedia unit and the dash kit and begin to assemble those pieces. We're going to start by taking this bracket and attaching it to the plastic part of the kit. We're going to install 2 screws right here to lock these 2 together. This is essentially creating a standard double gin chassis so it can be mounted into the kit. With the plastic and metal brackets attached, we can now take the Stinger brain and slide it in to where these 2 screw holes align. If you're installing the optional HEIGH10 navigation card, it goes right here in this front slot. Take the SD card, lock it in there, clicks right into place. The side mounting brackets do have a small oval insert that needs to go inside. It says this side up for double DIN ISO. That's what we're doing, is a double DIN ISO. So we take these little snaps, we put those right in here, and that assembles that piece. We do the same thing for the other side of the kit. This side up for double DIN ISO. That just gives us the mounting rails we need to fit the radio correctly. These tabs are at the top of the kit. And you're going to take the side brackets behind these little pegs, kind of tilt them into place. It snaps into place when they're correctly aligned. Behind these little tabs, the kit will snap into place. There we go. With the sides installed, we can now take the Stinger brain, slide that into the kit. And we're going to line up and install mounting screws in these holes here. With the brain in place, we can take the trim ring, snap that in. And that's going to go ahead and lock those side tabs in nice and solid for you. With our brain assembled, we're now ready to attach the bracket to the back of our heightened screen. That's going to allow us to mount the screen to the brain in the truck. This bracket has a lot of possible mounting locations, and in this particular installation, we found it works best in the lowest mounting possible because that raises the screen up in the truck. We are not using the installation wedge. You can use a wedge to pitch the screen one way or the other, and you can also tilt the bracket. In our installation, we're gonna install the bracket straight up and down and in the lowest possible position. So take the 2 set screws, the large screws, and thread those into the bracket. When you first start to screw, you might have to give it a little extra force because you are threading into the plastic. You'll notice the bracket does say top here, so we're going to line that up and we're going to install our 4 set screws. Now with the bracket securely attached to the heightened screen, we can take this, the brain, and all the wiring and head back to the truck and complete the installation. Before we install our infotainment system into the truck, we're going to take our factory dash panel and remove the factory 12-volt power outlet. That's where we're going to install our dual USB extension. We're going to take this guy out using the pick tool. If you put your thumb on the back of the outlet and hook the little tab and put just enough pressure on the back of the outlet, when you come around and hook this other tab, just slide that out. That will let the 12-volt outlet slide out of the front of the dash. With that removed, that comes right out. That's going to allow us to put our dual USB extension cable right here so that we have access to USB ports for Android Auto, CarPlay, and any firmware updates in the future. So we're going to take the factory dash panel and our dual USB cable and the locking nuts. And I'm going to take the 2 USB cables and feed those through the dash panel. Feed those through here like so. Right into place. You can either mount the USBs horizontally or vertically. That's completely personal preference. In this truck, we're going to mount them horizontally. Take the washer, slide it over the top, and then thread that into place. So now that the USBs are installed, we're going to take this factory panel and set it down here carefully. And I'm going to run these USB cables up under the climate control panel and set them in the dash so that they're ready when we do plug in our multimedia unit. This way they're ready to plug into the back and they can tuck in the dash. Now we can start making the connections in the vehicle. We'll grab our radio replacement module, the harnesses here. Because of the wiring that we made at the bench earlier, the connections to the vehicle are going to be all plug and play. We take the 2 main connection harnesses and plug those into the vehicle connectors. If the truck was equipped with a factory backup camera, you would actually be plugging in a 3rd connector into this brown connector here. This truck doesn't have that factory backup camera, so we're not using this connector. Now we're going to take the antenna adapter and connect that to the factory GM antenna. The Stinger infotainment system does feature an internal microphone built into the display. It also includes an external optional microphone. If you choose to install this microphone, you can clip it to the headliner, or you can clip it to the A-pillar, and then just tuck the microphone cable down along the weather stripping, up underneath, inside behind the dash, and bring it here to the dash cavity where you're going to install the multimedia unit. Once you route the 3.5mm cable to the dash, you're going to need to connect it to the cable labeled mic. That'll snap when it's fully connected. That plugs into the back of the Stinger multimedia unit. You can always install this, and then in the user interface, you can switch between the internal microphone and the external microphone and see what works best for your installation. Now we're ready to take the harnesses and plug those into our Stinger multimedia infotainment unit brain. So this is our audio video input output harness. This is where the reverse cameras would connect. This is also audio RCA outputs if you're going to add aftermarket amplifiers. The main power and audio connection harness. Our steering wheel control input harness is very important because we do have steering wheel controls in this truck and we want them to control the aftermarket unit. That's going to connect to the steering wheel control output of the radio replacement module. Remove the little plastic cap. Make sure you connect into the one that says SWI, that's steering wheel interface. Once it snaps in, it's in place. And then our dual USB ports are going to plug here in the back. There we go. We need to connect the GPS antenna. Normally you'd have to route this somewhere inside the dash. In this truck there's enough space we can actually stick it right on top of the Stinger unit there. And we're going to connect our 2 LVDS cables. We'll route those down so they can go to the screen. The 2 LVDS cables need to come through the dash kit so they can connect to the display once the kit's in place. Like so. Make sure to connect the antenna adapter into the brain. Looks like we have everything connected. Now we can start to tuck things inside the dash so that we can put the module inside the dash. And now we're just going to hold that into place, and we can reinstall a few of the 7mm bolts to hold the multimedia unit in place. Now we can tuck the rest of these wires up inside the dash. With all the connections made in the dash, now we can take our HEIGH10 screen and temporarily attach it, turn the truck on, and make sure that everything works. Then we can finish the installation. Connect your two LVDS connectors. You're going to engage the spring first and then latch the top onto the bracket. Lift up and hook into place. Now we can turn the truck on and make sure that everything works. Awesome, looks like everything works great. We've tested steering wheel controls, everything's functioning perfectly. Now we can turn the truck off, remove the screen, and reinstall the factory dash panel and complete the installation. We're going to tuck these USB cables up in here as close as I can, and then reinstall the factory climate control panel. Be sure to leave the power plugs down here for the power outlet and the traction control plug. Then reconnect your factory traction control plug and your cigarette plug power port if you have that in there as well. This truck is missing this one, so we're not going to reconnect that. These want to come through the dash. Now when reinstalling this panel, this is going to need to tuck above these lower panels, and we want to clear the shifter. So pull the shifter back a little bit to give yourself some clearance. Carefully slide that up. And we need to take the bottom edge of this panel and tuck it in to these other panels, like that. Tuck that above those panels, and then you can engage the lower clips and work your way up the panel. It'll snap into place as you go. Now we're ready to take the screen and mount it onto the display. We are going to go ahead and use the optional accordion boot. Notice on your bracket where it says top, and on your accordion boot, there's a notch in the center. This goes where it says top. So just slip this over here, lift up just to get it to fit over, snap that into place. There we go, clicks into place. Connect your two LVDS connectors. Tuck your wires into the dash. And then again, we're going to engage the lower portion first with the spring clip, slide up, and then hook the monitor into place. Now that's installed, that completes the installation. I hope you enjoyed this installation of our Stinger HEIGH10 into this 2011 GMC Sierra.